Good morning. It is 6:44. Welcome back into Great Dates Tuesdays. You know what Tuesday means. It's time to visit with Ron, the car guy from Westside Auto Pros, as we try to give you tips and things you probably didn't know about your car, or if nothing else, remind you of some things about your car.
The reminder is the big thing. Absolutely, absolutely. And in preparing for today's show, I went through and I made a list. It was pretty extensive about some of the most expensive mistakes that I see people make with their car. And then I kind of had to pare it down because time permits me to talk about possibly 3 of them.
So I guess you just have to come back one of these days.
Continue. It's guaranteed a trip back.
Hey, all right.
So these are the biggest mistakes that people make involving their car. What, on expenses, or what's the deal?
Well, just things that people do to their car that ends up costing them a lot of money, and they certainly could have.
And these are avoidable things?
Yes, absolutely avoidable. Like we have this picture here, for example, out of gas.
Oh, yeah.
And today's cars all have fuel injection. They've all got electric fuel pumps. And the thing to keep in mind is the fuel pumps are mounted inside the gas tank, and they're surrounded by liquid fuel.
Okay.
And that fuel is used to cool the pump. The pump's actually an electric motor, and it builds up heat when it runs. And so the manufacturers design it so the liquid gas around there dissipates the heat and helps the pump to run cool.
Okay.
So if you've got somebody that drives around on fumes, or back in the early 80s, I used to work at a gas station. We called the $2 chucks, where they'd come in and buy $2 worth of gas. Of course, now it's probably the $10 chucks because it's an equivalent amount. But anyway, they're always running that vehicle really low or on reserve or 10 miles till empty if they've got the digital readout on their dash. It's causing that pump to run a lot hotter.
Okay.
And it shortens the life of it. Your fuel pump's not going to last as long because it's running at a higher temperature than it was designed to run for long periods of time. And to put a fuel pump in today's cars, I mean, they can be anywhere from $600 to $1,000.
And reason being, because you have to go in and get them.
Well, exactly. So there's a very expensive repair that can totally be avoided if you just keep, a quarter tank or more of fuel.
I was going to say, what do you recommend? I was here in the winter
tank.
time to kind of keep it about a quarter, but you say year round.
Yeah, year round. You get down to a quarter, just pretend that a quarter is E for empty, and fill it back up, and your fuel pump will last much longer than it does if it's warm.
And you're going to need the gas anyway. It's not like
exactly.
Well, I don't know. I've always heard that, but I guess I didn't put too. My mom's like, that's hard on your car if you do that. I'm like,
well, back when your mom was telling you that, we didn't have fuel injection on cars. Your mom just didn't want you to run out and be walking.
Yeah, that's true.
We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have fuel injection.
I was always told as a kid, if you let that run empty, there's sediment in the bottom of the tank, and it would pull it in, and it's bad for the engine.
There is. What's happened now is that they've actually put a pre-filter on those pumps.
Okay.
And the sediment that we used to worry about is filtered out, because if that got in the electric pump, it would ruin it too. But they call it a sock. It's just a little nylon filter. So it's more about keeping the pump cool so it doesn't kill itself.
Right.
The other thing, and this is I don't know if I want to call it a pet peeve, but it's something I see often, and it's totally avoidable, is neglecting to change your oil and filter.
Yeah.
I mean, a car's not like vinyl siding on a house. It's not maintenance free. And what's happened is over time, the manufacturers have increased the drain intervals on oil, and they've put maintenance lights on telling you when to change the oil on your vehicle, and there's no wiggle room. I mean, if that maintenance light comes on and says change oil, it means like go get it changed. Not change it next week, change it 2 weeks from now. And people are ignoring that, or they're, it happens to myself. I get busy and all of a sudden I look at my oil change sticker and it's like, oh my God, I'm 500 miles overdue. And if you're setting that at the maximum, what's happening is you're killing your engine.
All right, what is the life expectancy of an oil? Because you have your standard conventional oil, then you have your synthetic oil, then your synthetic blend oil.
Correct.
And there was a commercial on just over the weekend. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you mentioned this, because there was a commercial on over the weekend talking about an oil that says you only have to change it once a year.
And that, again, would be a high-quality synthetic oil. and it's going to boil down to also how you drive the vehicle. The way I look at it, the cheapest thing you can do to your car is change oil. And we are one small shop in Des Moines, Iowa, and we replace over a dozen engines a year because the oil system was neglected.
Wow.
It's that abrasive on your engine.
There's no room for error. It is totally that abrasive. And once oil gets older, it starts to break down. And as it breaks down, it doesn't lubricate. It becomes just a liquid. And there's so many components inside an engine that the tolerances are tighter. They spin faster. You look at the GDI, the gasoline direct engines. I mean, now all that's run off of oil pressure. Passages the size of a pencil lead. I mean, there's just no room for contamination in there. And it's frustrating to see these cars come in and they've got major engine problems, and you're putting an engine in, and you're like, this could just easily have been avoided. I mean,
okay, lifespan of a typical oil change. What's a typical oil? How far can it run?
Typically 5,000 miles. I'm still old school. I'm still telling people.
Three.
Yeah, I'm still telling people 3, because it's going to be around 4 to 4,700 miles before you come in and see me. And if I tell you 5, you're going to push it to 6, and now we start getting into the point of no return.
So shoot for 3.
Shoot for 3 because it's going to take you a while.
By the time you get there, it'll be 4.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then number 3 on the list, the last thing I want to talk about is telling your mechanic what to replace. And assuming that you know what's wrong with your car, it leads to needless repairs and money out of your pocket. I mean, your friends in Google can't be right 100% of the time. Sure, there's pattern failures on cars. I mean, we all know that. This symptom is usually this part. But then the one time that it's not that part, all of a sudden there's an issue. And so, if your car's not running well, and let's say there's a misfire, and Google says it's a mass airflow sensor, and you go in and ask to have a mass airflow sensor replaced on your car, the mechanic in some cases is going to replace that mass airflow sensor, and then when they're done, you still have the same problem, and your wallet's $500, $600, $700 lighter, and now you're upset and at them, and they're upset at you, and Google's not there to give you your money back, and so the best thing to do is go in and tell them what your problem is. And maybe suggest to them that, hey, I did some research online and it said it might be this problem. They probably already know that, and that's where they're going to go look first. But the multiple failed components can cause the same symptom, so it's not always the same thing that's going around on your car. And we see it on an ongoing basis where people come in and maybe the car was somewhere else, or they and their neighbor replaced these 2 parts, and we're looking at it like, yeah, it usually is those 2 parts, but it wasn't in this case, and it's just money flushed down the toilet unnecessarily.
So be careful what you ask for when you come in. Like, let them do the investigating.
Exactly. You don't go into a doctor and ask to have your appendix removed. You go in and tell them what the symptom is.
Symptoms are.
Exactly. So.
And then the mechanics are basically your car's doctor.
Absolutely.
There you go.
But if people do have questions for you, Ron, where can they go to?
They can go to AskRonTheCarGuy.com, or they can come to our website, which is WestsideAutopros.com, and contact us. I'll answer all questions. You can call us too. There's a phone number on the screen.
Look at that.
Wow.
225-9090.
That's right.
The old-fashioned method.
Yeah, people will be answering that here in a little bit.
They better be.
Perfect, Ron the Car Guy. Well done as